Okay, today's lab has two parts. In one part, we're going to find out first what is the specific heat capacity of vegetable oil, which we're going to be using in the second part of the experiment to find out how hot is that fire. In order to find that out, we're going to use the calorimeter, and instead of putting water in the calorimeter, which would boil on contact with the hot piece of metal we're using, we're going to use the oil because it has a much higher boiling temperature and it won't boil. So the first part of the experiment, I'll give you the data, I'll put them up on the screen for you. First, let me just show you what I'm doing. I've got my calorimeter and I weighed out 50 grams of vegetable oil using the balance. I'm just gently putting this cup down here into my calorimeter, and I'll put the top on and measure the starting temperature. And again, I'll give you what that data is in just a little bit. I'll put it up on the screen for you. And then I'm going to put in this hot piece of steel, the same hot piece of steel that we were using before. This one is 200 grams, and it came out of this boiling water. I'll give you the boiling water temperature, and I'll give you the temperature of this when it's done rising in temperature, and the temperature gets up to its highest point. We'll use these data to figure out what is the specific heat capacity of the oil that's in there. We already know the specific heat capacity of the steel, which we found in a previous experiment. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment, and I'll show you what you're going to do when you go back to the lab bench with your calorimeters. I'm going to give you a cup that has the oil already poured into it, and inside there's a metal baking cup. That's to protect the foam cup. When you put the hot piece of metal in, you don't want it to burn through the bottom of the cup. So I've already weighed out 50 grams of oil for you, and all you have to do is take the cup and gently place it into your calorimeter, and then put on the top. And then you want to measure the starting temperature of the oil and write that down. And be careful when you do this that you don't poke the thermometer through that foil cup, because we don't want that to spill out and make a big oily mess. So just gently set that in there and measure the starting temperature. Now comes the fun part. What you'll need to do is get one of these metal nuts, and you can put it on the electronic balance over on the balance station and find its mass. And you'll need to record that. And then take it back to your bench. What you're going to do is set it up like I have here to get hot until it's red hot. That should be about as hot as it could possibly get. And we'll take that as the temperature of the flame. However hot that piece of metal is, we'll say that's how hot the flame is. And so what we're going to do is very gently, without dropping it and getting it on anybody, we'll take this hot piece of metal and we'll put it carefully into the calorimeter. It might smoke a little bit. And then put the top on. And now the temperature is going to rise dramatically. So put the thermometer in gently. Again, don't poke a hole through the bottom. And swirl and watch the temperature as it goes up. When it gets to its highest point, then read that ending temperature. That will be the final temperature for the oil in the calorimeter. Now if we know what the temperature change is in the calorimeter, and we know what the specific heat capacity of the oil is, and if we know the specific heat capacity of the steel that's in there, we can use all of that information to find out how much did the temperature change in the piece of metal when it cooled off, starting from here and ending in here. If we know what the temperature change was in the metal, then we can calculate what was its starting temperature here by comparing it to the ending temperature of the calorimeter. When you're all done, please wipe the oil off of the end of the thermometer. And just leave this right here. Don't dump it down the drain. Don't throw it in the sink. Let me please clean that up so that we don't have a spill in an oily mess.